Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Stories Podcast. My name is Jody, here again with Steven, and I have a few quick announcements today before we get started. Number one, we have a new Patreon supporter. Hooray!
Yay!
So thank you so much to Eric for your support, and I am getting a gift in the mail to you this week, and I hope you love it, but thank you so much. And then last week, we kicked off our t-shirt giveaway, and I've decided randomly that goes through July. So
Perfect.
Now you know, brother. There's a link in the episode notes where you can enter your name, and that puts you into a drawing to win one of our awesome t-shirts. They have our Jolly Dragon on them. And then we get to hear from more people. So it's pretty much a win-win. So I hope you go check it out and enter to win. It should only take a couple minutes to enter your name. So go do it. It'll be fun. And then number 3 is our top 5 new download locations this week. So we have Hampton, Virginia, Atascadero, California, Potsdam, New York, Fort Mill, South Carolina, and Vero Beach, Florida. So thank you all for listening. We're glad you're here. Okay, anything you want to add, brother? I don't tend to ask you. I don't want to put you on the spot, but just in case.
I got nothing. Nothing. Actually, that's not true. One of the things I'm very excited about at the end of the summer is I'm going to go to a conference.
Me too.
Both Jody and I are going to a conference. So I graduated from George Fox University in Newberg, Oregon. That's where I did my undergrad. And there is now a roughly annual C.S. Lewis conference being held there. And so we're going to go. And I just thought that would be fun. So if anybody's near Newberg and is going to the conference, I will see you there.
It's called the Undiscovered Lewis Conference. And I heard there's a video, I'm blanking on the word, a premiere of a Leaf by Niggle movie, which, I don't know, I'm excited. I'm intrigued.
Indeed. Yes, I'm excited now too.
Yeah, it should be good. So that's coming up in a few months here. But today we are talking about a book called Still Alice. This is a novel by Lisa Genova, and it is unforgettable. I read this one probably a decade or so ago, and I've never forgotten it. And I've stalled to do it here on the podcast because I might just weep the whole time. Definite possibility. This one is different than other ones we've done so far. I guess I always say that, but this deals with some really hard things, in particular, a hard diagnosis and mental health problems. It is both painful and beautiful and deeply human. It is a story that looks at identity and the value of life and memory and really what remains when so much seems to be slipping away. So this is a big one. Here we go. Time for a story.
Dr. Alice Howland has it all. A cognitive psychology professor at Harvard University and a world-renowned linguistics expert, Alice is also married to a successful scientist, and she has 3 grown children. When she turns 50, she begins to worry about lapses in her memory. Trivial at first, these start to become more concerning. Her life is turned upside down when she seeks medical care and is diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. This story travels with her as she navigates her new reality and the disease takes hold. We get to see what it does to her career, her family, and her perception of what it means to be still Alice.
Very good. The spoiler alert on this one, it's the same as every time. We're going to go all the way through it, but an age recommendation, there's not a lot of graphic content in this, but it is hard. It's a mature story about things that can really happen. And this is a rare thing, and it's devastating in its way. But there is a lot of hope in it as well. So I would say a mature reader, at least high school, if not older, for some of the heavier things, just to understand kind of the 2 sides of it.
Yeah, definitely with the heaviness of it. I would think no earlier than high school. There might be the rare mature reader who would get something out of it before then, maybe depending on your own personal experiences and exposure to this. I guess the other thing, there is a little bit of swearing in the book. It's not frequent or common, but some listeners have been bothered by that in the past, and so I do want to point that out.
Yeah. So when did you first read this one, brother?
Last week.
Really?
This was a first read for me.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
It's one of my favorite parts of doing this podcast is that there are lots of works that I know and am familiar with. And then there's a bunch of stuff that Jody has read that I've never touched. And so I get to discover new things. And so you have introduced me to this as a brand new work for me.
I feel like this demonstrates something about you and me. So Stephen will go through phases of reading where he'd just read everything on philosophy, every philosopher ever, the complete works of philosophy, or the ancients. And I went through a phase about a decade ago where I read every New York Times bestseller I could find. Just there's lists out there. I went and read them. A lot of them I did not care for. This one I loved. So it's not often that we do a story by a living author, but in this case, Lisa Genova, she's still out there. If you ever hear this episode, thank you. I think this is wonderful. She did write other books. Did you look this up?
I did. I have the list of some of her other books, but I haven't read any of them.
So this one, Still Alice, is specifically about early onset Alzheimer's. But her other books are on other diseases. But I thought you'd appreciate that there's a nonfiction one about memory, because it is important to know that everybody loses their keys sometimes. That does not mean you have a sickness.
I think that is going to be an important warning in reading this book. Yeah, this is a very rare condition, this early onset Alzheimer's. Memory issues, we all have them. So please don't think you have Alzheimer's because of this book.
It is funny and a great example in it because her husband in it is always losing his keys, can never find him, but he's not the one with memory issues. Hilarious and tragic simultaneously.
One last thing about the author. We've talked in the past about how I don't really like speaking about living authors because they're still speaking for themselves. But just impressive woman, it sounds like. I mean, she's a PhD neuroscientist. And so she comes with a lot of knowledge, and it's very clear in reading this that she knows her stuff and has done her research.
Yeah, and the introduction to this book, it alone made me cry because she's speaking about just raising awareness and being aware. She knew in her work and studies apparently about this disease, but wrote this book in an effort to understand from the empathetic side. What would it be like to be the person diagnosed and living out this diagnosis of early onset Alzheimer's, knowing that she's going to lose her memory? And so the empathetic aspect of this book, I think, is really rare, writing it from the perspective of the woman going through it.
Yeah, and she does a great job. And it's my understanding that this has been turned into a movie that won awards.
Yeah, I have not seen it. I was actually waiting till after we do this. Frequently, I'll reference the movie, and like in the movie this, but this one I hadn't seen it before, so I didn't watch it ahead. I will watch it after. But yeah, it won Oscars, I think.
I like the way she organizes this book because she organizes it by time. And that is such a recurring motif as we go through this story of how much time you have left, who you are at different stages of time, what your memory is doing. And it also lets us get a snapshot of just how quickly this progresses. And so it does start in September 2003, which, boy, that's a long time ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, this book came out,
2007 is, I think, what I found.
So I must have read it fairly new.
You must have. Well, she self-published it at first. And then it got picked up by a publisher, and that's when I think it made it big.
Yeah, and it's been a long time on the New York Times bestseller list. If you're a person who reads those, this one was there a long time, and I think deservedly so.
Mm-hmm. You have already referenced, though, how this one starts up. John, her husband, is looking for his keys, and she is laughing at him because she knows where they are, but he just never does.
Does this happen in your house where people will be like, I can't find anything. And I open the door and be like, there it is. Literally happens, I'd say at least weekly, if not daily. Does it happen at your house?
It does. It happened more when the kids were little. This was an ongoing joke where you would say, hey, find your shoes. And then our child would be looking at the ceiling in the corners of the ceiling.
I can't find them anywhere.
You are correct. They are not in the corners of the ceiling.
At the beginning here, we learn a little bit about Alice and her work and her husband and his work. They are both successful Harvard researchers and professors. And really, like you said, they're living the dream. They have 3 grown children who seem to be successful and wonderful people. There is tension with the youngest daughter, though. And you know that kind of up front. She wants to be an actress, and her mom wants her to go to college. These are academics. And that's been Alice's path, her mom's path. And the daughter says no. She's in California trying to be an actress, and the dad supports her. So this is kind of a family tension.
Yeah, these are impressive people. I mean, just listen to the title. So she is Dr. Alice Howland, the eminent William James Professor of Psychology at Harvard University. That's impressive. And John is like no less than that. He's not a psychologist. He's a molecular researcher. He does chemicals and chemistry, but is equally as impressive. And then I think one of their children is a doctor. One
one's
of
a
their
lawyer.
children. Yeah. And then again, you have kind of the black sheep who happens to be the smartest of the children, apparently, is the one who is off in California trying to be an actor. One of the things that really struck me is how human this family is, because they are impressive in what they've accomplished, but there are cracks showing in the relationship. They both work a lot. Both John and Alice are always working. They are traveling. She is speaking at engagements around the world, giving lectures and seminars, and he lives for his lap. So he's always just running out of the door, and they don't seem to be spending a lot of time together here in their empty nest phase.
And I cannot emphasize enough how well I think this story is written about all that, where it's summed up in a way like a narrative that you could think about in your mind, because Alice is thinking about how much they love their jobs and how they have this shared commute and what a gift that was. But it was because they used to go together. Early on, they'd even hold hands walking to work. You know, this was this beautiful time. They had a coffee place they go to. But that's kind of old news now. For a long time, both of them have been consumed with jobs they love. But it's kind of gotten away from them. You feel kind of a wistfulness there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she travels a lot. She speaks a lot. And deservedly so. This woman is impressive.
I think in earlier days, the two of them had actually collaborated in their respective fields, and they had published a textbook together. I mean, they're at the top of their game. Really impressive. And Alice is actually traveling here in this first month. She goes to Stanford. I mean, this is a Harvard professor traveling to Stanford in order to give a speech. And it has her up front, and it talks about how good she is at this, how she can read the room and just fill it, how sharp she is. And she begins speaking, and in the middle of the speech, she says, the data reveal that irregular verbs require access to the mental... And then she pauses. She can't remember what the word is, and so she just moves on. She goes ahead of it. But this bothers her, and it's only after this speech is done and she's on a plane to go visit Lydia, the problem child, that she remembers the word lexicon. She couldn't remember it, but then she did.
It says she became suddenly stuck. She simply couldn't find the word. She had a loose sense for what she wanted to say, but the word itself eluded her, gone. She didn't know the first letter or what the word sounded like or how many syllables it had. It wasn't on the tip of her tongue. This isn't even close. It's just gone, erased, right when she needed it. But I love how she's thinking about her public speaking. She says there's a statistic that people fear public speaking more than they fear death. It says she loved it. And she can like size up an audience just by looking at it because she's done it so many times and she's been a speaker and a professor. But here, this word is just gone.
And this hit home for me. I mean, nobody is asking me to speak across the world at venues, but I've always been a good public speaker. And it's always been the kind of thing that the words just come. I don't really have to work for it. And so this idea that a word is just gone, that you can't catch it, yeah, that would bother me. That would bother me too. I would hunt for that word later until I found it.
It would come to me at 3 a.m. That's when I wake up like, oh, lexicon. I do that on the podcast all the time. Like, oh, that's the word I wanted. But oh well. It doesn't burden me. It just wakes me up. Anyway, this mom, Alice, now she switches to mom role. She goes to LA to see her youngest daughter. And It's tense. She shows up early. She can tell her daughters like scrub the place quick. There's mention of a boy and like male roommates, and that's a little tense. They go to dinner. So they're trying to bond, but there's these walls. And here is where Alice learns that her husband's been funding these acting classes she doesn't approve of. So family stuff. There's tension here, and they don't really get over it in this conversation.
No, it is awkward between Lydia and Alice. But Alice goes home, and now she's waiting for John because they're going to have this out. Because John has been hiding this fact that he's been paying for her classes. But John isn't there. He's at the lab. He's never there. And so she's sitting there waiting, and she decides, you know what? I'm going to go for a run. This woman loves to run. Not only is she brilliant, she's also incredibly physically fit and runs all the time. But she had actually forgotten to take her jogging shoes on this last trip. And so she sees them there and she decides she's going to leave the house and maybe John will be there when she gets back.
Yeah, there's pain through these, though, because she was hoping he'd be there. She'd asked him to be there when she got home, and he wasn't. And so, yes, the run might help her feel better. And you can tell the author's local, because I lived in Boston for a while, and the places she mentioned, even the main road she describes and the river, the run, that's where people go running.
Really, because it all just went right over my head, because I did not live in Boston.
Harvard's on the north side of the Charles River, and so she's running along these places that are so familiar to her. She's done it so many times, and she runs miles, as you say. Oh, one other thing. In each of these instances, she forgets something. At the restaurant, she forgot her BlackBerry. To date this, she has a BlackBerry.
Jody, what is a BlackBerry?
I used to have one. It was a type of cell phone, still a cell phone, so it didn't predate cell phones. I loved my BlackBerry. For the record, I miss it. It had the funny little buttons on it. It was not touchscreen. Those were the good days.
There was a whole culture turf war back in the day between the BlackBerry users and the iPhone users. Because the iPhone came on, I think, just a little bit later, but it had the touchscreen, whereas the BlackBerry was physical buttons. And yeah, people were passionate about which one they cared for.
I eventually had a Palm Pilot. That I think was my favorite ever.
I started with a Palm Pilot because this was before it was a cell phone. All it was a personal data assistant.
Oh.
When I started medical school, you were required to have either a Palm Pilot or a BlackBerry, and the Palm Pilot was way cheaper. So I had a Palm Pilot.
Was it a phone?
No.
You could just take notes?
You could take notes, had a calendar, and then it had things like there were certain rudimentary apps for like medicines. So I still use one called Hippocrates, which is a drug database. And there was a early form of that was in the Palm Pilot.
Interesting. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Anyways, this lady's out on a run. I got distracted with the BlackBerry. It's important to her. She lives out of her BlackBerry. But she's on this run that she's done 1,000,000 times. She's on her way home, and she wanted to continue walking, but stood frozen instead. She didn't know where she was. She's trying to contextualize it. Like, she is a smart lady throughout this. Even when her mind starts to go, she can contextualize. She looks around for clues and things, but she is lost on her way home. And so leaving her BlackBerry, that was weird. Forgetting the word on stage, that was an anomaly. But for losing your way on the way home, that's scary.
Yeah, someplace she knows so well. And it wasn't just for a moment. It wasn't a transient confusion. This took minutes. And she starts moving, and eventually she sees something she recognized, and it describes how everything kind of snaps back into place. And she's like, oh, okay, I know this now, and goes home. But this rattles her and justifiably scares her.
Yeah, but she makes it home here, and John's home. But instead of being happy, she was upset he wasn't there, and she's scared. Like, that was an alarming thing to happen. And we learn a little bit more about her incrementally, where he pushes back. He says, you need to talk now. You need to be home. You're awfully needy all of a sudden. And she doesn't like that word needy. She's never been needy. Her dad was needy.
Yeah.
He was an alcoholic, and worse than that, his drinking had actually killed her mom and sister in an accident years ago now. But this was traumatic. And we learned that her dad had died recently, in the past couple of years maybe. I can't remember. But she does not like being called needy. That is not her. That is not who she is. And so this is a tense time again between her and her husband.
And he doesn't stick around long. He says, hey, you went for a run. I was here. We could have talked, but you didn't. Now I've got to go back to the lab. And again, he's just out of there. So again, impressive people, incredible careers, but I find myself not really liking them.
Yeah.
And their relationship, it's like, talk to each other, people, but they're not. And she's so scared here that she's almost picking a fight, and it's not a happy scene.
Yeah. And then he heads out back to the lab, and she takes some deep breaths. But again, she was rattled, and she goes and she Googles menopause symptoms. This lady's about to turn 50, and she looks it up. And it says it's an appalling list filled the screen. Hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, but also includes disorientation, mental confusion, memory lapses. She's like, oh, that's it. Check, check, and check.
That's right. She has the answer. I've solved this. And though it's annoying, having the answer gives her confidence and comfort.
Nothing life-threatening, nothing abnormal. That's what she tells herself. And again, I want to put that warning in here that it's normal to forget things. Memory lapses are normal. Menopause symptoms are part of the process. I will let the doctor speak more on this because he knows more than I do about it. But this is different, the losing her way, not for a moment, but for extended amount of time on her way home, and just the stack up of things.
Yeah, the sheer number of things that aren't quite right. And any one of those things on its own wouldn't be enough to be overly concerning, but the volume of them, and the author does a great job of putting so many of these just little things, but some of them are pretty big. If you get wildly lost in a place that you should know when you're 50, that is concerning. And so it makes sense that she's Googling what can be going on here. And menopause is logical. It makes sense.
Yeah, and now we're into October 2003. Time goes by. We got a month gone. And school has begun there. And she's a mentor. What's it called when you're a guidance counselor? That's not the word.
She's a faculty advisor.
She's a faculty advisor to this guy who's trying to graduate.
Dan will show up a fair amount.
He seems pretty decent. We like Dan. But here we learn just some identity pieces of her because she can rattle off research papers and dates like easily from her mind. And everyone always like, how do you do that? Like, this is who she is, and she prides herself on it.
I love her description of kind of this ongoing competition, because these are Harvard professors. This is what they do. They're all competing to be that smart, to be the one that knows everything. And she thrives on it. And she says, I love this, Alice wore the imaginary blue ribbon more than anyone, meaning she was really, really good at it. But we also find that she's organized. She's all about tasks. And so she makes lists. And so, for example, here's a sticky note list she has. Cognition class, check. That's not her cognition. That's something she's teaching. Lunch seminar, check. Dan's paper, no check mark yet. Eric, no check mark yet. Birthday dinner, no check mark. Eric, what does that mean? She asks herself. She doesn't remember what this is on the checklist. She knows an Eric. He's a head of psychology department at Harvard, but why is he on the checklist? And she just can't figure out what's going on. So, no worries. She figures it'll come to her, and she throws the list away.
Irritated but confident that she'd recover whatever it was about Eric eventually, she threw the reminder list, her fourth one that day, in the trash and pulled off a new Post-it. Eric, ? And added something, call doctor. Memory disturbances like these were rearing their ugly little heads with a frequency that ruffled her, and she admits that it's probably time to go see a doctor about it.
But before the doctor, it's time for a party. Alice is turning 50, and there is a birthday party, and she is there with her husband, John, her daughter, Anna, Anna's husband, Charlie, and her son, Tom. And they are all going to this party, and they're going to hang out and socialize and eat, and it's going to be a hoot. Except for it's kind of not.
Again, I think this chapter tells us a lot about her identity. Her family is important to her, and they're all important to each other. They all show up for this party to celebrate their mom. Well, I guess, is Lydia here?
Lydia is not at this one.
She's
Lydia
in California.
Is in California.
Okay. But it's important. They check in, and we learn about the kids here, where it's Anna, who's the lawyer, and she's trying to get pregnant. And it's a big thing. And they know she's not pregnant because she's drinking. They have champagne or something. And Tom, we learned Tom, the doctors are terribly unhealthy. They eat terrible and don't sleep ever. But he shows up for his mom.
Mm-hmm. And they have this kind of family conversation back and forth. And it's really, really interesting. We learn more about the family. She's watching John talk with their son about his experiment. So John is a scientist. Their son Tom is a scientist. And he is speaking about this with passion. And I love this line. I just find this so poignant. It says, she recognized these meaty conversations he used to have with her when they spent time with Tom or John's colleagues. He used to tell her everything, and she used to listen in rapt attention. She wondered when that had changed and who'd lost interest first, he in the telling or she in the listening. So definitely some relational stress.
But they toast, happy birthday to my beautiful and brilliant wife, to your next 50 years. They all clink glasses and drink. And then in the bathroom, Alice is looking at herself because her daughter there, her oldest daughter, and her oldest daughter reminds her of herself. And here's where we learn more about her own mother and that she never got to see her mother old. She doesn't know if she looked like her mom when her mom got older. She didn't live that long. She was in this terrible car wreck when Alice was young. It says Alice's mother had died when she was 41. She hadn't lived long enough to earn them, the sags and the wrinkles. Anna is who she used to be in her mind. She's looking around. I mean, it's her birthday. She turned 50 and she's feeling menopausal. It makes sense.
Yeah. And remember, though, or what struck me is that the menopause was an answer to a problem. The idea that she was in menopause was a solution to why all these memory things were happening. Well, after the party, she goes into the bathroom and she starts her period. You're not supposed to do that after menopause. Now, you can have some irregular bleeding, especially as you're first going into it, but this concerns her because she had her answer, and now it says the possibility that she wasn't actually in menopause snuck in, grabbed on tight, and wouldn't let go. And she starts to worry that she might be losing her mind.
And her daughter walks in and says, Mom, are you okay? And that's how the chapter ends. And then we're in November 2003. So this is very much a timeline. So spend a couple months, and here she's in her primary care doctor's office getting an exam. And she's so healthy. Everything about her is healthy. She's checked out here, though, and she's trying to tell her that she's had these memory lapses. And it says, everyone forgets these sort of things, especially as they got older. At menopause, and that she was always doing 3 things at once and thinking of 12, and these kinds of memory lapses suddenly seem small, ordinary, harmless, and even reasonably expected. Everyone's stressed. Everyone's tired. Everyone forgets things. But then she tells the doctor, I also became disoriented in Harvard Square. I didn't know where I was for at least a couple of minutes before it all came back to me.
And that changes the doctor's attitude. So she describes the doctor really well here. This is Dr. Moyer, somebody Alice knows well. It's been her primary care for years. And I love the opening of that paragraph. Alice watched her doctor closely. Her confession didn't seem to grab her in any way. Dr. Moyer received the information like a priest listening to a teenage boy's admission of impure thoughts about a girl. She probably heard this type of complaint from perfectly healthy people countless times a day. And that's true. I mean, as primary care, everybody comes in complaining about their memory, but not everybody comes in saying, I got disoriented for several minutes on a run in a place I know. And then Dr. Moyer launches into a whole bunch more questions. And most of these you can kind of trace what she's asking about. And Alice is very smart, and she's tracing what the doctor is asking about. There's questions about, are you having a heart attack? There's questions about, did you have a stroke? There's questions about, what was your breathing like? You know, and Alice can kind of attach things with each of these. But towards the end, she starts to get worried about some of the questions Dr. Moyer is asking and some of her plans. So they talk about doing blood work, but scary to Alice, Dr. Moyer talks about doing an MRI of her brain, an imaging study. And so now she's convinced, well, I must have a brain tumor.
Yeah, the discounting of the menopause theory is a panic to Alice because that was her easy solution, right? This is normal. This is part of what happens as I get older. But that is now reasonably discounted, and there's more tests coming. And then we go to her office at Harvard. And I love this. She is a tenured professor at Harvard. And it talks about how ugly the building is from the outside, but her view looking out is beautiful, just wonderful. She's earned it, I think.
Absolutely. But when she's back at her office, she's checking her email and she finds one from Eric. And she learns that she was supposed to have submitted several slides for a presentation. They're not late. She still has time, but normally she's ahead of the game on this and they haven't heard anything. And so she feels horrible, but she gets them all ready. She sends them. She apologizes. And now she knows what the Eric was on her check mark. But now she's forgetting something at work. And work to her is something she loves and has been just second nature. And so that bothers her. But she doesn't have a lot of time to think about it because she has to go deliver a lecture.
I like this line, though, because this was a different Eric. That's why she never put it together. This is a whole different Eric. And it says a cold and dusty light bulb flickered on inside Alice's head. That was what the mysterious Eric had meant on one of her to-do lists last month. Man, that would be so frustrating when, like I said, these are identity pieces for her that she just lost it entirely. But she's going to lecture, as you said, and there's like 6 different classes that she might be presenting on. And she was just looking at the notes back in her office.
And again, this tells you how smart she is. I mean, the names of these files, the files she has in her computer for the class syllabus, acquisition, syntax, semantics, comprehension, modeling, and pathologies. She is an expert on linguistics and language. That's what all these titles are referring to, but she can't remember which one she's supposed to do next.
And she plays it cool. This lady's brilliant. Can someone please tell me what it says on your syllabus for today? She asks her class what it says, and so then she's got it. But it freaks her out. There was mention of a brain tumor. She's having an MRI done, and every time one of these things happens, she's getting more scared, reasonably so.
And then one more thing happens. So some days pass, and she's at home, and she walks in, and she sees John. Actually, it's the other way around. John walks in and sees her at home and says, "Aren't you supposed to be in Chicago?" She had a trip. She had a seminar to teach and speak at, and she just forgot about it. And so, again, thing after thing is stacking up. And then I love the way this chapter ends. "Well, Alice, all of your blood work came back normal and your MRI is clean," said Dr. Moyer. "We can do one of 2 things. We can wait, see how things go, see how you're sleeping and how you're doing in 3 months, or," and here she gets interrupted, "I want to see a neurologist." Fair enough.
Yeah. And now we're in December, and they go to a holiday party. She's there with her husband and colleagues. This is a work party, but they show up together, and these people, it describes how they've been really competitive in their work, but they're also a family. They've been with each other a long time and gone through life things as well. So this is really a comfortable place for her. But her student, Dan, shows up with a date. Or is it his fiance now? Fiance, I think.
I think it might be his new wife.
I gotta look. Hang on. Dan introduced them to his new wife, Beth. You got it. And she wore a floor-length red dress. And they'd been waiting to meet Beth. They'd heard of Beth. Alice has had a relationship with Dan for a long time as his mentor and faculty advisor. So she's been waiting to meet this girl. And they chat for a while. But then later on, Alice is talking to this woman in a floor-length red dress. And she basically reintroduces herself and says, "Hi, who are you?" "I'm Dan's new wife." She had forgotten that she'd already met her. I don't think Alice is perturbed by this at all. She didn't remember that she'd met her already. But here's where her husband sees it.
John gets worried. At this point, he says, "You know what? It's getting late and I've got to get up early. You mind if we get going?" And John just takes them out of the party, which he thinks is a little abrupt. Again, that one didn't bother her, but other people saw that one, which leads us directly into the appointment with the neurologist. So now she is seeing a specialist, and this is Dr. Davis. And Dr. Davis is going to play a prominent role for much of the rest of the book.
Yeah, he basically asks if somebody came with her. And she says, "No, I'm fine." And he says, no, if you're going to come here, you need to bring somebody with you for any number of reasons, but make sure somebody comes with you next time. And that words next time really freak her out. But she's describing to him things that have been going on and her memory lapses. And he asks doctor questions, medication and drinking and diet, surgeries, those kinds of things. He asks about her parents and their health, family history. But then he gives her these cognitive tests. And man, these are so tricky. A couple of them I had to read twice.
So this cracks me up because what he is doing is a form of what we call a mini mental status examination. And there are several formalized versions of this, but then most neurologists especially will have their own little tweaks, their own little ways they like doing them differently. But there are formalized ones that you learn in residency. So when I was in residency, this was something that people would come in, we'd admit them to the hospital, and we would have to give these tests. They don't take very long, and it's a lot of things like, I'm going to say 3 words, remember them, say them back to me. It's giving simple instructions, multi-stage instructions. It's having people write sentences, doing some basic, computation. There's a whole system for doing this. But what's hilarious is that a lot of things can factor into this, including how tired you are. And so as a resident administering this, it was usually 2 a.m. where I hadn't slept in 3 days. And you'd be asking the person, so Miss Smith, can you tell me what day of the week it is? And then you check your watch because you can't remember what day of the week it was.
You're like, that's right. Let me check.
Well, it's actually nice. You're not supposed to give either affirmation or negation.
Right.
You're not supposed to say whether they're right or wrong. You just ask the questions, which if you write down your answers, gives you the opportunity to double check later because you're just so tired. But anyway.
I mean, some of these, so at the beginning, he tells her, I'm going to ask you to repeat the same name and address again later. So he warns her. Ready? Here it is. John Black, 42 West Street, Brighton. And can you repeat that? And she does. And he asks, how old are you? Today's date? What season? He has her draw some pictures. I mean, there's a bunch of questions here. He lists off objects. I think there's 6 of them. He has her draw a clock and she has to draw the time and all these things. And then at the end, he asks her, okay, what was that name and address I told you earlier? And immediately, John Black, nothing. She's got nothing. And the point isn't to shame anyone, and memory lapses happen, so he kind of cues it. Says, is it 24, 28, 42, or 48? If you're listening and you can't remember what number I said, don't worry. It's okay. But here, it really bothers her. This has been part of who she is, her RAM is excellent, being able to pick information out of her memory, and it's just gone.
Yeah. And I want to reemphasize what you just said. This is a basic screen. And so there was enough here that he then sends her for what's called neuropsych testing, which is this on steroids. I mean, it's a much, much more extensive testing to give answers. But Alice's response at the end of this is really interesting. She looked him directly in the eye. A colleague of hers, and remember, she's a cognitive psychologist. A colleague of hers had once told her that eye contact with another person for more than 6 seconds without looking away or blinking revealed a desire for either sex or murder. She reflexively hadn't believed this, but it had intrigued her enough to test it out on various friends and strangers. To her surprise, with the exception of John, one of them always looked away before the 6 seconds was up. Dr. Davis looked down at his desk after 4 seconds. Arguably, this meant only that he wanted neither to kill her nor tear her clothes off, but she worried that it meant more. She would get prodded and assayed, scanned and tested, but she guessed that he didn't need to investigate anything further. She told him her story, and she couldn't remember John Black's address. He already knew exactly what was wrong with her.
That part bothered me, because actually, I'm a person who keeps eye contact. Like, I didn't mean to convey anything. Neither of those things.
Now you're going to start counting to 6.
You're like, no, look away now.
5 seconds, 5 seconds. Look away.
Look away. But she doesn't go home and go to work. This is Christmas Eve. This is the holidays. What she does is go home on the couch and she looks at pictures of her children when they were little. She looks at family pictures. She walks down memory lane. She's having memory glitches. And where else would you go but down memory lane. And it talks about how good she is at it. She can remember exactly where they were, what they were doing, why they were there. She has all the details still, but these photographs conjure up those memories for her. And they're so sweet, her describing her babies.
She also starts retesting herself. She keeps thinking about John Black's address. She keeps coming up with lists of words and things to remember and lengthens the list of words. She's doing everything she can to convince herself that her memory is not fading, that it's not falling away. She argues more with John about Lydia because Lydia is going to come visit for this. John leaves for the airport to pick her up, and in the meantime, she's got a job to do. Apparently, for time immemorial, she has made a white chocolate bread pudding for Christmas. Every year. It's just what she's done. She can't remember how many eggs.
Her question to herself, because again, all of this is from her own mind, her own narrative. What the hell is wrong with me? And she knows there has to be more than 6 because she bought 2 cartons. She's always queuing, always investigating. Very brilliant lady, even with these lapses. But she can't remember. And she's so upset by this. And this one resonates for me. I have family recipes tucked in my head from years and years ago. And for it to just be gone, that seems so mean.
Mm-hmm.
So personal for that to just be poof, gone. But she ends up throwing these eggs in the kitchen. I mean, she gets angry that this is happening to her. She cannot access what should be automatic. She chucks these eggs everywhere and her daughter comes in. Oh my.
Yeah. These eggs splattered everywhere.
She's like, I'll make it, Mom. It's okay.
But then that doesn't help very much because she then pokes her head. Mom, how many eggs do I need? That one hurt.
That's what I mean about this book, though. It's so clever. What a family thing to do. Mom would know. Mom would know the recipe, right? So whatever's going on with her, she at least would know the eggs, the number of eggs in the recipe. So there's a whole thing, the family dynamic, the narrative in Alice's mind, where she's still her, still Alice, but it's changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very well done. And that moves us now past the holidays into January of 2004. And remember, this all started in September. So we're only, 4 months into this? And already there are significant changes in Alice. But there's one very, very important day in January, and this is the 19th. And she makes it clear nothing ever good happens on January 19th because this is the anniversary of her mother and her sister's death. 32 years ago in a car accident when her drunken father killed them both. And so this is not a good day. And so it's crazy that this is the day she schedules her follow-up appointment with the neurologist.
It says she couldn't get out of it. There was no other date that worked, or she would have had to wait longer, and she's feeling the urgency. So yeah, she's there on this day. That's just bad luck to her. And it's Dr. Davis again. He's like, didn't we talk about somebody coming with you? And it's not just for her own safety. It's also so that he has input from someone outside of Alice, someone that knows her. But he makes her promise, next time you will bring someone, right? And no excuses next time. But here's where he tells her all the good news first. She's 99th percentile in her ability to attend and things like abstract reasoning, spatial skills, and language fluency. He goes on about how exemplary her mind is. But there's a but.
And she can see it coming because it's a polished delivery. And she does polished deliveries. So she knows that he's building to something. And here it is. Although you were perfect in most of the cognitive domains today, you showed a lot of variability in 2 of the tasks that were related to recent memory. In fact, you were down to the 60th percentile in 1. When I put all of this information together, Alice, what it tells me is that you fit the criteria of having probable Alzheimer's disease.
The words knocked the wind out of her. What exactly did he just tell her? She repeated his words in her head. Probable. Probable. It gave her the will to inhale, the ability to speak. So she's grasping here. So probable means that it might not be that. And he basically says, I think it's that. And the phrase brain atrophy comes out of this conversation. Her brain is decaying away.
Dr. Davis, is all business here. He's very clinical and he's very good. Because remember, she's a Harvard professor. She has access to the smartest people anywhere. I mean, little secret to folks, if you go to a random small clinic in Wyoming, you might find a very smart person, but you're not going to have the highest level theoretical research programs. That's not where those guys go. Harvard is where those guys go. So this guy is up to date. He is cutting edge. He knows all the research and everything that's happening. And he talks to her about how Alzheimer's disease, due to her age, since she's very young for Alzheimer's disease, is most likely genetic in origin. And that hits her like a freight train because she's got kids. She's really worried about that.
Yeah, the phrase is strong genetic linkage. For her to have this, it says that it's a disease that typically affects the elderly, but 10% of people with Alzheimer's have this early onset form and are under the age of 65. This strong genetic linkage makes her think Anna, Tom, Lydia. Immediately it goes to her children. How could it not? Of course it would. And here's, I think, the first point where there's been this tension with her youngest daughter. She wants to be an actress. She's in plays and things. And Alice pretty much dismisses those up to now. But here she said, basically has an out-of-body experience. Says the sound of her name from the doctor penetrates her every cell and seems to scatter her molecules beyond the boundaries of her own skin. She watched herself from the far corner of the room. And they play out this conversation, but she's really looking on as a spectator. And that's a precursor to something that kind of continues to happen in this book, where she starts to watch things and she feels like a character in a play. And this echo with what her daughter has chosen to do, I think is so interesting. That black sheep, the smartest one of the family, smartest one of her kids, who wants to, skip college and just be an actor. Alice is starting to look at things from the outside, like she's watching a play. It's a really interesting just way to view the narrative from her mind. And it happens more and more. So this is the first instance of that.
I think that's a great point. The doctor, though, is also very insistent on what we can do about it, right? Ways to help. And he's got a regimen he recommends. Medicine called Aricept, one called Namenda, vitamin E, vitamin C, baby aspirin, a statin medicine, and regular exercise. And that's what he is recommending at this time. This was in 2003. We are recording this in 2026. To my knowledge, we do not have better now. It's been over 20 years, and we are still using all of these recommendations. Having said that, even now, none of these work. And so they certainly weren't going to work in 2003.
Yeah. It says at the end of this book, there's a disclaimer, because this is fiction, but the woman who wrote it, Lisa Genova, is very intelligent on this, the disease and the actual mechanical nature of it. And she says the drug Aricept, I think, was a fictitious drug for the book. One of them was. Which one?
Not this one. Later, when she goes back with John, they're going to talk about some research studies and some theoretical medicines to try on. And
so Aricept is a real drug?
Yeah, Aricept is one that we still use today.
Well, the other thing he gives her is a questionnaire, the activities of daily living. And it says, this should be filled out by an informant, not the patient. It's typed in bold at the top. And he says, first step, you have to tell somebody. She hasn't shared this with her husband yet. And she's got this paper. She knows what she needs to do. She's looking at these lists of foods and basically what her future was going to look like. Again, she's so smart. She can figure these things out. There's the list of rating scales for each activity. You range it from 0, no problem, same as always, to 3, severely impaired, totally dependent on others. She scans down the descriptions and says number 3 was a humiliating list. Must be fed most foods. Has no control over bowel or bladder. Must be given medication by others. Resists efforts of caretaker to clean or groom. No longer works. Homebound. And the list goes on of these things that aren't her now. But she knows that that's where this goes. That's where this ends. She's a smart lady. And I actually love that she's brilliant because she'd have so much more awareness just from the beginning of what this means for her and how little can be done to prevent it. But it doesn't stop her. Actually, she does all the things. She eats right, she's exercising, but she doesn't tell her husband.
No, certainly not at first. This is January 19th, and as we've already said, that's an important date, and nothing good happens on January 19th. So they go to the cemetery, but this time her father is there. Her father had died, and she's a little angry that he's there. Like, he doesn't really have the right to be there with her mother and sister, who they always come to visit on this day. But now she starts thinking about him, and she's angry about him, right? This DNA must have come from him. She blames him for this, and she's angry at him. And again, she only knew him as a drunk. And that's what she always assumed all his mental deficits, all his problems was from his alcoholism. Maybe. I mean, that certainly didn't help. But now there's this other factor. I mean, did he have Alzheimer's from a young age?
Yeah, a genetic linkage. Somebody did.
Yeah, it was either him or his mom.
Yeah.
Or her mom.
But they go to the cemetery, and she gets upset. And rightfully so. And John thinks it's just the emotion of the day, emotion of seeing her family's graves and after her father has died. But there is a key part to that questionnaire that listed out communications. Speech is almost unintelligible, does not understand what other people say, has given up reading, never writes, and she's thinking no more language. She describes the periodicals and research books in her office and all the books on her shelf that she hasn't read and always meant to. Moby Dick comes up. That's a commitment.
It is indeed.
But here's a quote. Everything she did and loved, everything she was, required language. And so, yes, going to see her family's graves, she gets upset. She just weeps.
The book doesn't say how much later it is, but there's a break in the text, and then it is the scene where she is telling her husband about this diagnosis. And it is raw and it is rough.
10 days ago. Takes her 10 days to tell her husband. And it says earlier on that she'd rather die than tell her husband. This is her identity pushing against this diagnosis, and I can't even possibly fault her. I mean, how hard would that be to tell her husband? That's what unites them, their work. Like you said earlier, they wrote a book together. They've done research together. This is what unites them as a couple. And she has to tell him. And he's brilliant too.
Yeah. So then she has to argue with him.
She has to defend her diagnosis, this thing that she was pushing against. She now has to convince him. And he says, no, you've just been stressed. You've just been tired. You've got all this stuff going on. She has to defend it to him. I mean, the turn is hard. And
point for point, he has an answer for all these problems and all these issues until the Christmas party with Dan's wife. That was the one that he doesn't have an explanation for or an answer for. And that's where he realizes, oh, this is a thing. And again, she does such a great job of describing this, because in so many tellings of this story, he would be immediately supportive and, her rock. He is not. Says without looking at her, he got up and went straight to the study, leaving her alone on the couch, hugging her knees, feeling like she needed to throw up.
So this story is Alice going through this diagnosis and the effect on her body and her mind, but it's also about her husband, her caretaker, as he becomes. And here, he didn't just run away. He says, I need to do some reading, and then I want to talk to your neurologist. He's going to do research. This is what he knows how to do. This is the action he can take. But I will tell you, that was the wrong move. To leave her alone on the couch at that moment, that wasn't the right thing to do. But I don't think anyone caring for somebody in this kind of circumstance is going to do it all right. And my heart goes out to him. I told Steven with this episode, I might just weep on the side, like the whole thing. And he can just tell you this one. It's hard. It's so hard. But there are such beautiful things in it. And our mom has read this one, and I'm going to reference her several times. We probably should have asked her to do this one with us. Didn't occur to me ahead, but my mom loves this book as well, because she has been the caretaker for people going through things like Alzheimer's, dementia. And being that caretaker is a hard job. It's hard to know what to do as a person changes. But John did not play that one right.
No. Which is, as you say, one of the reasons I love this book and why I think it's so well written. Because we don't play it right. And she does a really good job of showing that in this.
The next chapter is February. So we've gone from September when this started to February 2004. And we see a to-do list for the day. And they're getting more detailed.
Yeah.
She doesn't hold the things in her mind, and she knows it. And so there's more specifications. She makes sure she puts the topic of the lecture she's supposed to give in the notes, but she's still giving lectures. She's still showing up. She still has so much in her mind that she carries around because she's done it so many times and it's so familiar to her.
And the first big appointment that John goes to with her is to the genetic counselor. Because, again, Dr. Davis had thought this had a very strong genetic link. And so the genetic counselor is explaining the various forms of this. And the take-home point on this is that if she has one of these, it's considered an autosomal dominant disorder. And what that means is your children would have a 50% chance of having it. It also means that if you have the mutation, you have the disease. So it's about as clear as it gets for these very, very rare forms of early onset Alzheimer's. Most forms of Alzheimer's can't be this clear on. Most forms of Alzheimer's, you need either a biopsy, which we don't do, because taking a chunk of the brain is dangerous. And so this is, in some ways, a really good way of doing this for the story, because it makes it very clear what's going on and also makes the risk for her children very, very clear.
Yeah, she gets a positive, says, Alice, you're positive for the PS1 mutation. There it was. Absolute proof, served straight up. No sugar, no salt, no chaser. And it burned all the way down. And John's like, what's the lab's false positive rate? He's looking for something else. And Alice even tells him, even if it's negative, it doesn't mean I don't have it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't necessarily make it not true. But he's just looking for any other alternative because he loves her.
And with this finding, it also becomes clear that they need to tell their children. They haven't yet, but it's obvious that they have to. And yeah, John continues to struggle with this, understandably so. We move into March, and John literally won't watch her take her medications. The sight of her taking her medications is too hard for him, so he'll go somewhere else. He'll go out of the room. I mean, he is really struggling with this.
And he won't ask her for help anymore when he loses his keys. This used to be a ritual, not on purpose, but he'd lose his keys and he'd look everywhere and he couldn't find them. And Alice, where are my keys? Here he looks and looks and looks and looks and looks until he finds them. He won't come to her like she's still her at this point.
Yeah. She is trying to take steps to be careful. So she still runs and loves to go running, but she'll carry a paper tucked in her sock that has like her address and John's phone number on it so that she's safe when she goes and runs. She is struggling to come to terms with all of this. She does things she wouldn't normally do. She goes into a church. She's overwhelmed by it, doesn't know what to do in there. But again, she's looking for help and looking for answers. And there's kind of ongoing arguments with her and John. And then, I mean, eventually she tells John, look, we've got to talk about the future, my future, what's coming up. And he responds that he just doesn't think he can. I mean, it's definitely a lot of struggle here dealing with all this.
I like the sequence of the seasons here, and she describes how there's no buds on the trees. This is a dark, silent kind of time. She, even running, it's too icy out, and she hates running on treadmills, so she's just kind of lost. And in this church, she's looking for answers. She wants somebody to show up and talk to her. It doesn't happen. But it says that she has a thought before she leaves, and it came with complete and simple lucidity. The answer came to her. Talk to John. He's been avoiding her. She doesn't know how to reach out. This has become a problem. But talk to John comes clearly to her sitting in that church, in that quiet, where instead of being so busy looking around, talk to her husband, which is not an easy task when he's running away.
Yeah.
But she makes it happen. I think she goes and sits on his lap, and they actually connect over the grief of this, because there is grief with it. And I I don't want you to think that's all there is in this book, or we wouldn't be doing it. But it is hard, and no question. And they do have this grief and connection together, and that's how they can approach their children to tell them.
They do try and come up with a plan, but they can't get very far with it. And so about the only plan they have is that they have a summer home. And so they do decide that they're going to try and get through the school year. She's going to keep teaching. She's going to do everything. She hasn't told the people at Harvard yet. And then they're going to go off to their summer home for the summer. And again, they do decide to tell their children. And it's heart-rending and so real, because as they show up, Anna, their daughter, is turning down a mimosa because she's still working so hard to get pregnant. And now all of a sudden there's extra meaning for that because of this genetic mutation.
And here is where Alice looks to John. He nods, squeezed her hand, and she tells her children, I've been experiencing some difficulties with my memory for some time now. And in January, I was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. And there's silence. They can hear the clock on the mantelpiece. I mean, this is hard news to get suddenly, especially from their brilliant, entirely put-together mom, who's only 50.
Their kids run through all the same questions that the two of them did. Are you sure? Did you get a second opinion? Is it autosomal dominant? Asked Tom.
Doctor.
These are smart folks.
Their son, the doctor, figures it out first. It means we have a 50% chance of getting Alzheimer's. And Anna says, what about my babies? She wants to get pregnant. This is crushing to her in the moment. What terrible news. And I think that's a natural response to especially in a genetic thing like that, to look at your situation first. But the kids kind of talk through it. And do you want to get tested? Do you want to know? Anna says, yes, absolutely, I want to know. Tom, the doctor, says, yes, I want to know. But Lydia is there too. And it says she always goes her own way. I don't want to know. Why do you think that is?
Oh, I could totally see that. Remember, there's no real effective treatment for this. And so all of a sudden you have this label on you. Good luck trying to get health insurance. I mean, good luck in terms of certain career paths or relationships. Hey, it's nice to meet you. Just so you know, I'm going to lose my memory probably around age 50. I mean, it's a burden that you can't do anything about anyway. So I totally understand Lydia not wanting to know. Honestly, I'd probably fall on that side of the equation. But I also understand the people that want to know, especially if you're planning to have kids.
Yeah.
And where it factors in and is a decision in that process. So there's not a right or a wrong answer here. It's not that Lydia made the right or wrong answer, that Anna made the right or wrong answer. It's something that has to be a personal choice, and there's pros and cons to whichever choice you make.
Yeah. Well, Alice is still working, and she says it was strangely quiet in her office and in the department, and she loved it. She got a lot of work done that she'd been working on because it was quiet, but she was really tired. And as she wraps up, she heads home, and she doesn't even stop she doesn't drink coffee. That comes up several times. She's a tea girl. But she walks into the kitchen at home after a day of work, went this oddly quiet time, puts the kettle on the stove, and the microwave clock reads 4:22 a.m. She was there in the middle of the night, had no idea.
And this chapter ends with Tom and Anna, the two that tested, coming in, and they give her the results. Tom's clean. He does not have the mutation. Anna does.
So just on the medical side, because if Alice had tested negative, she said it wasn't necessarily true that she didn't have it. Is that the same for Tom, where if he didn't test positive, so he still might have it?
He wouldn't have this. And this is part of why this is written so well, because it's very binary. If you have this mutation, you will get the disease. If you don't have this mutation, there are other mutations that can pop up, but it's not genetic in the same way, or probably wouldn't be genetic in the same way. So if he didn't have the mutation, which he doesn't, then odds are he's got the same risk of developing Alzheimer's as everyone else has.
Okay. The next chapter is May now. It says, Alice first thought of peeking inside the week after she was diagnosed, but she didn't. It doesn't say where. Peeking inside where. But then we learn Mount Auburn Manor Nursing Center. Today she did. She goes into the memory care unit at a home. And I think she'd have to at some point, both to see perhaps her future or what it's like, if she'd be better off there, if they had resources there. Just any number of reasons I could see being tempted to go look. And she's young for this place. And they're like, oh, you have a parent who's been diagnosed? Yes. So she fibs a little to get in. And all these people are elderly. They're not her. She's a different thing. She has a different thing than they have. And she comes out of it saying, this isn't for me.
Yeah, says she didn't belong there. It was a hard experience. And just bluntly, it's also crazy expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is really, really cost prohibitive for many people. And so she's not liking her options.
There's an important thing that happens here, though. Each chapter heading comes with the date and a butterfly. And I wondered about the butterfly when I first read this, but here's where you learn. She wears a butterfly necklace, and it was her mother's. And apparently it is nice, way too nice for day to day, but she's wearing it now. And she has a memory. It says she liked being reminded of butterflies. She remembered being a little girl and crying over the fates of butterflies in her yard after learning that they live for only a few days. Her mother had comforted her and told her not to be sad for the butterflies, that just because their lives were short didn't mean they were tragic. Watching them flying in the warm sun among the daisies in their garden, her mother had said to her, see, they have a beautiful life. Alice liked remembering that. So her mother died when she was young. I mean, had just left for college, and that her mother gave her this lesson of comfort and this necklace she carries with her. I love everything about that.
I agree completely. And I also love this other moment of joy that occurs right now because she loves ice cream.
She really does.
She is going at a triple scoop peanut butter cup in a cone, and she is just masterfully licking this thing. She talks about how it's not even getting onto her hands. And so she's just thoroughly enjoying this moment, which honestly, she's been so busy with work and life. I don't know how many of these moments she's enjoyed this thoroughly. And so there is this gleam of light here of this, in this moment, this ice cream is awesome. And she looks at another silver lining. She's like, hell, I'm on Lipitor. Lipitor is a cholesterol medication. Bring on the ice cream. I mean, she's just going to town on this, which I think is great.
This line is so good. Despite the escalating erosion of her memory, her brain still served her well in countless ways. For example, at this very moment, she ate her ice cream without dripping any of it onto the cone or her hand by using a lick and turn technique that had become automatic to her as a child. It was probably stored somewhere near the information for how to ride a bike and how to tie a shoe. And she knows like where in the brain, where in her cortex this would have been stored as a skill and the automatic nature of it. And I think most of us can imagine doing this. Like, I remember my cousin eating an ice cream cone raw.
Yeah, there are people that just don't know.
No.
What's wrong with them?
Occasionally he'd bite off the bottom.
Oh, no.
Why would you do that?
No.
I feel like there's a faction out there that does that. I don't understand, but okay. But this when you describe it in words, an automatic lick and turn technique, it's funny in words, but yeah, I get it. This is also May. So while we're following the kind of the chronology along here, this is a hard time for her, but there are these moments, these wonderful moments where she's being forced to slow down. And I'm on Lipitor, have some ice cream.
That's right. She is also thinking about the future. I mean, how could you not in this setting? And something called a sabbatical. So this is something the Harvard professors can do apparently periodically. There's rules about how frequently you can do one. And the way it goes now is for both her and John has to work like one more year, and then he can take a year off. He can take a sabbatical with her. And so she is really looking forward to that. And she's looking forward to more ice cream. She's looking forward to the book she wants to read. But she is not looking forward to what's going to happen to her brain. And what this moves into is something very, very dark.
But before we get there, I have to point this out because she's assessing what she wants. I mean, this of any time in her life, what does she truly want? And it says she wanted to live to hold Anna's baby and know that it was her own grandchild. She wanted to see Lydia act in something she was proud of. She wanted to see Tom fall in love. She wanted one more sabbatical year with John. She wanted to read every book she could before she could no longer read. And it says she laughs at herself and is surprised by what she wants, because none of that included Harvard or teaching or even linguistics or research. None of those things that she dedicated her professional life to made it into that list of what you really want. And I think that is important for all of us to sift through, maybe not day to day, but in the broad sweep of our life. What is it we truly want? And are we working toward those things? Important before this next piece.
I think that's a great point, because there's one more thing on the list that I'll just show my cards. I don't think it belongs on the list. This broke my heart. And when the burden of her disease exceeded the pleasure of that ice cream, she wanted to die. But would she quite literally have the presence of mind to recognize it when those curves crossed? She worried that the future her would be incapable of remembering and executing this kind of plan. Asking John or any of her children to assist her with this in any way was not an option. She'd never put any of them in that position. And so she starts to come up with a plan of how she can end her life, even if her brain is no longer in a position to be able to end her life. And she pulls out her trusty BlackBerry, and she typed, "Alice, answer the following questions. 1. What month is it? 2. Where do you live? 3. Where is your office? 4. When is Anna's birthday? 5. How many children do you have? If you have trouble answering any of these, go to the file named Butterfly on your computer and follow the instructions there immediately."
She sets a recurring reminder on her phone. Every morning, 8 a.m., her phone will buzz and she will be prompted with these 5 questions. And these are all things she should know automatically, too easy. But when she can't do that anymore, she doesn't want to be a burden to her family. She never wanted to be needy, ever. And yeah, this is crushing.
We're not going to mention it every time it comes up, but periodically in most of the following chapters, she'll go in and answer these questions. It'll just be the list of the questions. She doesn't talk about it, but you just see her answering the questions, and the answers will degrade in terms of their specificity over time.
Mm-hmm. But she's still teaching. So she shows up at class, but she sits in the audience. And when I first read this, I got a little confused because she's looking at her watch, waiting for the professor, rolling her eyes at other students. And then she's like, well, I got better places to be. And she heads out.
We all had a rule, right? How long you had to wait in college classes before you could leave. For us, it was based off of the credentials of the instructor. Was that for you as well?
10 minutes.
Oh, for us, it was, if it was a MD, PhD, you waited 20.
Well, at Harvard, they wait 20. So at 10:21, she's like, all right, I'm out. She doesn't put it together that she's the lecturer. These kids are looking at her and giggling because she's sitting in the audience like a student. And again, she's not ruffled because she didn't know she did anything wrong.
And this is just brilliant from an author standpoint. Again, Lisa Genova, thank you for this book, because this is a masterful stroke, because she just throws this in there. And so we get to walk this journey with Alice. I was confused by this too. What's going on? This is what Alice is experiencing. These moments of disconnect that just don't make sense, and then moves on. And there's going to be some others that are really well done later in the book.
Here's where she goes back to her primary care doctor and she says she's having trouble sleeping. And she rattles off other things that are true, but she hasn't been having trouble sleeping. And this goes along with her her butterfly plan. These aren't for anything else. These are for future Alice when the time comes. And she gets them because she's a very put together lady and so smart.
So smart. So this is her plan. This is her stash. So her plan, when the time comes, is she's going to overdose on sleeping pills.
She's back with Dr. Davis. They go through those same tests over and over, and you can see kind of her degradation. She's still very capable here, but it's not the same as super sharp Alice at the beginning.
This is where John is in the room as well, and this is where they're talking about other treatment options. There was that initial set of treatments that were available, but this is Harvard. This is the forefront of clinical trials. And John wants to know, he's been doing his research, and so he's got questions. And my goodness, Dr. Davis, you know the answers. I mean, there's all these trials John is throwing out and referencing, and Dr. Davis has done his homework too. He's the expert, and he's got answers on all of them, but ultimately they have to make a decision. The doctor is recommending a trial for a medicine called Amylyx. Now, this is a fake medicine, but it references a real trial, and so it's very well done, again, by the author. John wants to go a different route. He's done some research on something called IVIG, on a version of ibuprofen, essentially, and then an estrogen patch. And that's what he wants to do. None of this is proven. None of this is covered by insurance. The trial would get paid for by being a part of the trial. The IVIG and the stuff that John wants to do, you would just have to pay for it out of pocket. There's an argument back and forth. And again, Dr. Davis is very collected on here. He tells the pros and cons on both sides. But eventually, the decision is up to Alice. And Alice decides to go for the Amylyx trial.
And here again, she's having this almost out-of-body experience where she's like, I can't believe I'm here. She almost felt like a character in a play. This woman with Alzheimer's disease. The husband held a script in his lap. Only it wasn't a script. It was the activities of daily living questionnaire. And it says the woman's neurologist sits across from the woman's husband. Enter the woman. She's the woman. She has become this character in this play.
Yeah, and this chapter ends with stage directions. Parentheses, interior of doctor's office. The neurologist left the room. The husband spun his ring. The woman hoped for a cure. End parentheses.
Unless you're still very upset with John, the husband, he agrees to go running with her because exercise can help slow the what's another word for degradation? Can help slow the process, can help keep herself longer, keep her mind together longer. But he hates running. And he does it faithfully. And she describes later how she'll run behind him. She lets him set the pace. And it does get easier for him, but she knows he hates every moment. And she's so grateful to him for that. That reminds her how much she loves him. So John does not do it perfectly, but there are things where he really stands out. And all the research he did was for her, for them. It's how he shows that he loves her.
And John never leaves. Mm-hmm. He's always a part of it. Imperfect, yes, but always a part of it. And yeah, I think that's very admirable. And forgive me if I'm too hard on John to begin with.
Well, it was a bad start. And again, he didn't do it perfect, but I think that would be too much to expect, really, even in a nonfiction story. But he does go running with her.
Yeah. We are now in July of 2004, so it's been less than a year since she first noticed anything going on. But things are progressing. But now school is over, and they're in their summer home on Chatham Cape.
Chatham.
Do you know that one, too?
I know where it is. Oh. Chatham Cape, yes.
All right, Chatham Cape.
But this is where they go to relax. This is their vacation home. And it starts where she's calling his name. And she was sure that he wasn't home, but being sure of anything these days was tattered with too many holes to contain the meaning that it used to. And she knows that he probably left, but she doesn't remember why. Store maybe? Milk? Movie? Don't know. But this section where they're on vacation for the summer is very lovely because she is degrading. Her mind is going. But Lydia, her youngest, comes to stay. She gets like a role in a play while they're there. And this is where her mom and her really start to bond because those barriers come away. The tension between them softens enough that they can actually communicate at a point where they can understand a little bit about each other. And at this point, Alice already has trouble on the phone. or keeping up in conversation with multiple people, but it works really well for her to read plays with her daughter.
Yeah.
And more as Alice's mind goes, her ability to kind of pick up on visual cues goes up. And that suits Lydia great for her acting. She loves the things her mom picks up on, and they can take it at whatever pace Alice needs to. And the tenderness with which this daughter, where they never got along before, but with which she cares for her mom, I love it, and it makes me cry, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. There are scenes in here where the mom doesn't recognize her. That's going to happen more and more as the book goes by. But speaking with her mother as somebody who's different, where her mother talks with her without the baggage.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this lovely young woman that she's talking with and giving advice to. And that works. And so Lydia is able to see things in her mother that she couldn't before. And you're right, Alice, her mother, is able to see things in Lydia that she couldn't before. And I do enjoy, too, how much in these plays Alice is also picking out the emotions. There are emotions that she can pick out of the play. She can't follow all the words or the plots or things, but Lydia will ask her about the emotions of the play, and she still feels. So her brain doesn't work, but her heart does. And so she can get the emotions, and it is sweet. What's harder, though, is that Alice is starting to slip into times where she doesn't really know past from present. And so there is an episode in here where she's talking with Lydia, but it becomes clear that she thinks her mom and sister are still alive or have just died. And so John ends up coming back, and he asks what happened. Lydia says she was asking for Anne. She thinks they just died. He held her head in his hands. He was talking her, trying to calm her down. This is John holding Alice. And then these are the thoughts of Alice. Why isn't he upset too? He'd known about this for a while, that's why, and he's been keeping it from me. She couldn't trust him. That one cut like a knife.
Yeah.
That she couldn't trust him. That was real in her mind. And that's the first of any of that we see.
Well, and the freshness of the grief. It would be like grieving someone's loss brand new. This old grief that still hurts, but she's lived with a long time and it's become a piece of her, but now it's fresh again. Like it just happened. What agony.
There are very different forms of dementia. The way people experience dementia is very, very different. And I've met many, many very happy, demented people that they just live in the moment. Life is good and they're happy. But I will never forget one woman I met who every day for her was the day after her dad died.
Oh.
And her father had died 50 years ago. So, again, the author of this book does a really good job of peppering in those realities, but without totally overwhelming us as readers.
Yeah. What I took from this summer section on the Cape were the crumbs of kind of wonder, the gifts that Alice is given at this time. She's still safe, and she feels safe here enough to go down to the water. And it says she looked out over the dark water. It's night. Her body's strong and healthy. She's running. She's eating well. She's on all these, medications with very little side effects for her because she's very diligent. It says her body's strong and healthy, held her buoyant, treading water, every instinct battling toward life. Yes, she didn't remember eating dinner with John tonight or where he said he was going, and she might very well not remember this night in the morning. But in this moment, she didn't feel desperate. She felt alive and happy. Very much that living in the moment, enjoying right now. And for John, that's such a burden. He's not necessarily living right now. He's still trying to make plans. But more and more, as she loses those planning aspects of herself, those cognitive pieces of herself, she's reveling in each moment.
Yeah. There's one other scene in here that really caught my attention where John is going to go for a run with her. And he tells her, you better get ready. He hates running, but he's going to go do it. And so she says, well, that's fine. I got to run inside and grab a windbreaker or something because it's still cool in the mornings. But she gets distracted. She ends up stopping, reading something. She ends up, it takes a long time in there. And it's just described really well. And then the other thing is this is the first time where she gets lost in her own home. She's looking for the bathroom and can't remember the bathroom. Now, back when she was first diagnosed, and there was that questionnaire with 1 through 3, and one of the things was can't control your bladder. I mean, she kind of scoffed at that because she said, well, this is for old Alzheimer's people. So that's probably just having an 80-year-old bladder that's the issue. Well, this is the first time she experiences it because she can't find the bathroom and she ends up losing control of her bladder. And John here is very, very sweet. And he comes in and helps her and cleans her up. But it's, again, that pathway where we saw foreshadowing of that in that questionnaire. And now we see the reality here as the disease progresses. And it's been less than a year.
Yeah. The question, how can I be lost in my own home? She's opening doors frantically, but it's just gone. And every now and then it'll snap back into place. But sometimes it doesn't.
Earlier with that classroom scene where she was sitting in class, and I said that was a great way that the author puts us into the mindset of not being able to trust your memory and the mind. There's a really well done scene here. How long did it take you to realize that it was repeating a whole chapter plus?
I don't know what you're talking about.
There's a deja vu scene where all of a sudden it bounces back to like a chapter and a half ago and repeats like a full chapter and a half.
What page? I'm skeptical. I did not notice that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is hilarious because I have just learned something. When I read through this, I thought there was this masterful artistic author device. Because in my book on page 143, this begins the chapter of July 2004. And I read through this, and all of a sudden, everything I was reading seemed very familiar. And it literally duplicates in my book. It does July 2004, August 2004, and then it goes back to July 2004 and August of 2004. So there's word for word duplicated 2 chapters. And I thought, how clever is that? What a great way of showing where memory can fool you, and all of a sudden you're back where you were and don't even know it. And it took me a while to figure it out. Jody, what does your book do?
You have a misprint. You have repeated pages.
Oh, when I described this, Jody looked at me like I was crazy.
That would have been a clever device, but that is not in this book. No. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'm going to move on from there. So this is still summertime, although it's starting to wrap up. We are in August. School starts in September, and Lydia's still there. So she's at this conversation with her dad and Lydia. No, sorry. She's at the table with breakfast with her husband and her daughter. And I love this because she has a bagel, but she doesn't like it plain. And again, it's from her mind, and she can't really keep up with the conversation anymore, as we said. But she doesn't. She wants something, and I love it. She's like, white butter? No, that's not right. What is it? But later when John leaves, Lydia's always the one who notices. And she's like, you lost a word there. What were you looking for? And like, she's like, what's that called? Cream cheese. Yes. She answers questions for her mom. Lydia takes the time to do so. And they get talking about things. And Lydia asks her what it's like. What is it like to have this happening? And Alice says, I know what I'm looking for. My brain just can't get to it. It's like if you decided you wanted that glass of water, only your hand won't pick it up. You ask it nicely. You threaten it, but it just won't budge. You might finally get it to move, but then you grab the salt shaker instead, or you knock the glass and spill the water all over the table. Or by the time you get your hand to hold the glass and bring it to your lips, the itch in your throat is cleared and you don't need a drink anymore. The moment of need has passed. And Lydia says, that sounds like torture. I'm so sorry you have this. And Alice had wondered earlier, what would they even talk about? And it says, finally, they'd found something they could talk about. Something else than the fighting that they used to do.
And they have this connection over reading plays. They'll read scenes together. But this is another area where we run into some challenges with Alice's memory. because Alice has snuck upstairs and read Lydia's journal. Totally read it.
It says
read everything in it.
She doesn't feel like she has time. She doesn't have time to waste, and she wants to know her daughter. She wants to know everything she can. Yeah, she reads her daughter's journal.
So as the two of them are doing a scene, she casually drops the question, did you enjoy doing this scene with Malcolm? Malcolm being the boy Lydia likes and had written in her journal that they had done this scene together.
There's no way Alice would have known that without reading the journal.
She gives herself away. She no longer has the memory to be sneaky and to get away with these kinds of things. And it's really sad here because she is terrified now that she's broken this relationship with Lydia. And this was a passage that I wanted to ask you about because Lydia stays away for a little bit. She doesn't come home for dinner that night. But when Alice goes to bed, she sees Lydia's journal on her pillow. Lydia put it there, right?
Absolutely.
That was a peace offering. That was a...
Yes. Lydia had screamed at her, like, you didn't have a right. You didn't have permission to read that. And so it was a full disclosure, a full access. Here you go. Here's the permission. Like that scene where she just lets her mom, without even the words, I mean, language has disappeared or is disappearing for this woman. But that feeling and these gestures are absolutely still a part of her. And so that is a lovely way of giving her permission, full permission, open book.
As you know, I read these 2 chapters twice.
Yes, you did.
I didn't catch that on my first read through. And on the second, when I saw that scene, yeah, that's beautiful.
I'm trying not to weep right now. I love it.
Very beautiful. There's also some moments here where I do think John comes into his own a little bit as well. Again, Alice wanted to read Moby Dick and a bunch of other books, and she'd been working on Moby Dick, but now she can't find it. And they've looked everywhere for it.
It's hilarious.
Everywhere for it.
They look in all the weird places. They think somebody with a mental disorder might put something. Not there either.
So John goes out, and she assumes he's going to buy her another copy of Moby Dick. Well, he does sort of. He comes back with movies. Mm-hmm. He comes back with the Moby Dick movie. And it's this time that they get to spend together watching these movies. But Alice says she'll go make the popcorn. And as she pops open the microwave, she shouts, I found it.
Here it is. More Alice thoughts along the way where she thinks about all the things she's doing. She's taking these medicines and supplements. She's eating right. She drinks tea. She does yoga. She even brushes her teeth with her non-dominant hand. And she wonders if they're doing anything. But there's no way to find out if they are or they aren't without stopping. And she's not willing to risk any little bit of progress or slowing that she has from these. So she's just cycling through her thoughts, I think, as people would. But she's more and more alone, even here at the end of the summer. And this is right before they're heading back to work.
Lydia has been in a play. And Alice goes to see Lydia in the play with the whole family. They're all there watching her. And she's great in it, apparently. Afterwards, everybody is congratulating her and telling her how good she was. Alice, though, isn't acting quite the way she used to. You were brilliant, beautiful to watch, said Alice. Thank you. Will we get to see you in anything else this summer? Asked Alice. She looked at Alice for an uncomfortably long time before she answered. This is Lydia talking to her mom, and it's clear her mom doesn't recognize her. No, this is my only role for the summer. Are you here for just the summer season? The question seemed to make her sad as she considered it. Her eyes welled with tears. Yes, I'm moving back to L.A. at the end of August, but I'll be back this way a lot to visit with my family. Mom, that's Lydia, your daughter, said Anna.
It's crazy the emotion things that she does pick up on, though, because here she's seeing her oldest daughter. She's pregnant now, and she's there with her husband. And Alice doesn't even really talk to them that we know of, but she can sense the nervousness. They have this future worry, and she wonders if it's future worry because they know Anna might be sick one day. she has the mutation, same as Alice, or if it's the new kids, but she can also sense the happiness and the excitement and all these things that she picks up on. And there's a hilarious conversation where she keeps asking ahead of time, what time is the play tomorrow? Because she puts it in her BlackBerry and they're like, I think it's the son. He's like, we already told you, you have to use your mind. You have to, you're getting lazy. And they yell at him a little bit. She's not lazy. She's trying. She lives out of her BlackBerry. He's like, right, that's why it's getting worse. Like, they have this argument around her. But in the end, he like quizzes her like, Mom, what time is the play tomorrow? So she asks again, what time is it? 8? It's at 8 o'clock.
I enjoyed that one too.
Again, very human. It's this family dynamic because she's still a person, but it is different.
September comes. Summer is over. They have to go back to Harvard. And this is hard because now she has to tell her colleagues. She hasn't told anyone yet outside of her family. She thought she had covered real well teaching this last year, but now she's got to go back. And it starts with her boss calling her in and saying, hey, I want to go over your student reviews with you. They are brutal, and they've never been like that in the past.
Here's where she learns at one point she sat in the audience like a student, didn't even give the lecture. I mean, these kids are at Harvard. Harvard even then was expensive, and they're there for a first-rate education. So they're not ones to let these kinds of things go. They're there for the top notch, and she wasn't. She had slipped far more noticeably than she'd realized at all. And so here's where she lets her boss know. He assumes it's drinking or problems in the family, something like that. She says, no, I have Alzheimer's.
Her boss is understanding, but I mean, he was expecting something where like, okay, we'll send you to rehab and then you'll be good. Something like this that is permanent, there's no end game for that. Mm-hmm. This is just not something she can continue to teach. But she's great, and she knows that. And so she doesn't put him in any sort of awkward situation. She says she'd still like to show up for seminars and conferences. She's not going to travel or speak. She's not going to teach anymore. She'd still like to be Dan's instructor. He was the graduate student that she was overseeing. She'd still like to be a part of that if possible, but she's basically ready to step back and willing to step back. And I think she handles it with a tremendous amount of dignity and grace.
Yeah, but this is definitely a sequence of endings for her. Things that she defined herself as, labeled herself as, were important to her. In her mind, she says, I am no longer a teacher. I am no longer a research scientist. So she still has an office at Harvard. She's still tenured, but these things are done. And her goodbye letter, because her boss asked if Alice would like him to tell everyone or if she'd like to. She says, I'll tell them. It should come from me. And when her words are on point, she crafts them beautifully. And she steps down from these things that defined her. And the loss there is real and hard. This is a hard time of saying goodbye. Also because her husband and her had just had this wonderful summer. I mean, there were hard things, right? She is declining. But there were these wonderful moments. But here, he's back at work. And he hasn't changed so much. He's still committed to his lab, committed to his research. And now it's even more so because he's doing work towards helping his wife, developing some kind of way to help her. And so he's gone a lot and she's alone a lot, which is not good for her.
Not good for her. There is a really well-crafted scene here, though, where she does go to a conference and listens to a speaker talking, and she raises her hand after the presentation. And she's got a point to make, and it is great. She says, I think you're missing a control group that measures the actual distractibility of your distractors. You could argue that some, for whatever reason, simply aren't noticed and their mere presence isn't distracting. You could test the ability of the subjects to simultaneously notice and attend to the distractor, or you could run a series where you swap out the distractor for the target. Says that everyone at the table is nodding and taking notes. You don't have to understand that paragraph. I don't understand it, but it's brilliant, right? She does a valuable, meaningful critique, and she is so proud of this because, again, she's having to lose so much that here she can still be a contributing brain. She can still be a part of this.
Yeah. They go back to the experimental design slide. They're assessing it. Everyone is acknowledging the value of this comment. But then Alice is looking at the screen and she raises her hand. Yes, Dr. Howland? I think you're missing a control group that measures the actual effectiveness of your distractors. She tells the same exact thing again, not knowing, and this time it's awkward. And she doesn't get it. She's like, that is a really good point, but now it's awkward.
Why aren't people taking notes on this time? So again, really well done scene.
She had no classes to teach, no grants to write, no new research to conduct, no conferences to attend, and no invited lectures to give, ever again. She felt like the biggest part of herself, the part she'd praised and polished regularly on its mighty pedestal, had died. This is a hard ending. I mean, these things that she valued and loved passionately are done, and she feels so useless. This is a really hard transition time for her. And it's hard to read because she's losing what she thought of as herself.
Yeah, and the next October 2004 continues to be hard because this is basically just a series of episodes in her life where we see the way the disease is manifesting. There's a whole scene where she can't sleep, but she remembers, oh, somebody gave me pills for that. And so she gets up and starts tearing the house apart looking for the pills. John finds her, says, what are you doing? Come back to bed. She's lying in bed and she thinks, oh, I can't sleep. Hey, someone gave me pills for that. And so that cycle, that treadmill continues. There's an episode where she goes for a run on her own and she walks into the wrong house. Fortunately, it's her neighbor who knows her, and so it's not a dangerous situation, but she thinks she's in her house and kitchen, and she's not. She's in somebody else's. There's a whole sequence where John's at a meeting, and she calls him repeatedly asking for a run, and John doesn't exactly blow her off, but he's focused on the meeting, and she swears at him. I mean, she starts to get angry because he's not there. She tries to put on a pair of underwear as a bra, and obviously that doesn't work. And
she cries and then she laughs.
Yeah.
And John's getting frustrated.
She's not recognizing her kids consistently anymore. But Lydia, again, really steps up. Lydia, the one that had such a rocky relationship with her mother, is really going out of her way to do things for her mother. And she brings her a series of 3 DVDs. One that's the Howland kids, her children. One that's Alice and John. And one DVD that's just memories of her, Alice Howland.
That is so sweet, the gifts there. I love that part. The other thing that Lydia does, because she's still in California for the time being, she sends a daily email when she's not there, just to check in every day. And the thoughtfulness of that, I think, is wonderful when she can't be actually present. And then those videos, did you ever see the movie 50 First Dates?
Yeah.
I saw the cut for TV version. That was another instance where I didn't know. But where they make the video, so they reintroduce her to her life because she loops each day. Mm-hmm. And I think the science behind this book is far more accurate than that movie.
Than the movie 50 First.
But there are great sweet parts. But that's what the videos made me think of, where she can watch herself. It says she couldn't stomach watching her own, though, where she'd use the word thingy way too much because she didn't have the language that she used to. But a part of her is just glad that they have it. They have something of her as she is right now before she declines further.
I find the first part of November 2004 fascinating because she's trying to go outside. And at this point, she probably shouldn't be going outside on her own. But she can't get out the front door because there's a hole in front of the door. There's this chasm that she can't get over it. And it is horrifying to her. Turns out it's a rug. She sees the rug, but to her, it's this hole that she can't get out of. And at some point in here, she takes it and throws it outside when she realizes what it is.
Well, it freaks her out because the mail comes through the slot and it's hovering on this gaping hole, this chasm. And thankfully, she doesn't leave. She doesn't try to go over. But when her daughter comes to bring dinner, this is her oldest daughter now, bringing her food, and helping to take care of her, she's standing on this hole. And yeah, the rug makes her angry. She kicks that thing out the door. But even now, there are times when that sensing the emotion of other people comes to the front. And her eldest is has terrible morning sickness. She's pregnant now. And she's freaking out at one point, having this panic attack. And Alice is the one who comforts her. And Anna's thinking through their future, this future worry, right? This isn't even a problem for now. Like, what are we going to do? How will we get our jobs done and with the kids and all the things that are going on? But it's Alice that says, don't forget Charlie. That's Anna's husband. He's going to help you. You guys are going to do it together. And she points out the things that matter, because those babies are going to be what matters. Their relationship, the love they have together is what matters. And Alice more and more has clarity on that.
Alice does one other thing here that I think is great. She's asking for help, and she contacts the neurology office and says, I'm looking for a support group. And they say, well, we don't have any for you. We have support groups for caregivers and all these other things, but we don't have one that you can be a part of. And it's absolutely a gap she identifies here and brings it up to the neurologist and their office. And that's a cool thing.
Yeah, and they tell her, no, that we can't give out that information. And she's like, I'll bring coffee and donuts. Like, let's just get in a room together. There have to be other people like me out there, because she feels so isolated, so alone in this problem. But the doctors and people she reached out to identify that this is a gap, and they actually mention it to other people, a few like her. And there's 3 who reach out that say, yes, I'm interested. And you learn a little bit about them, and she is so encouraged, and she recites their names. And the first gathering is just wonderful, because they can all identify. I forget, she misspeaks. She says, like, she offers them thinks instead of drinks.
Yeah, would anyone like something to think? Asked Alice, and she's mortified when she realized it. But then one of the other guys, I'd actually like a cup of thinks. Mine's been close to empty for days. I could use a refill. And then they're best friends.
Because they get it, and their life situations are different, but they have enough in common. And here I was really hoping to see, because her husband goes off with their caregivers, right? They each have somebody. They have to have somebody with them. This is past the point of keeping them safe. Like, they must have somebody with them. The caregivers go off, but John doesn't find his people here.
No.
He's still so invested in his work, and because that's still who he is. But Alice has 3 people, Mary, Kathy, and Dan.
And this is especially kind of heartwarming.
Oh, different Dan. This is a different Dan.
Well, because this follows on her trying to read Dan's graduate thesis. So again, she was his mentor, and she still wanted to be a part of that. And so she's trying to read and correct this doctorate level thesis, and she just can't do it anymore. And so it is so great that on the heels of that struggle, where she knows that she just can't do this anymore, there is this world opening up to her with other people, and she can do something meaningful with and for them. So this is a wild success. And there's another success that comes up here in this time period. Lydia is applying for college. This was something Alice kept arguing about and trying to talk her into. But the way she finally does it is, when she doesn't even recognize her, is describing how it would be useful to have a college degree. I mean, if you wanted to produce or direct or do, certainly there's things you can learn about acting in college.
Or have kids.
Yeah.
And like give seminars, have the education and degree to do so. And this finally gets across to Lydia that there could be value there. And yes, she's applying to college in Boston and New York. The funny one, well, it's not funny, but it is. The author does a great job. There's this beeping. Alice cannot figure out the beeping. She keeps picking up the phone. No, that's not it. Reminders, emails. She's looking at things. There's still this beeping. It's not all the time, but beep, beep throughout the day. That would drive me crazy. It's driving her crazy. She can't figure it out. It's across the whole day, and things happen during the day. But they figured out kind of at the end of the day. John comes to the microwave. The microwave timer has been going off all day. She'd put tea in there to reheat. And it had been going off. Like, how frustrating. If you physically could not figure out what was beeping, man, that would just drive you nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
There's this big family discussion at this point because John, her husband, gets a fantastic job offer in New York. They live in Boston. She has been a Harvard person. This is her familiar home grounds for presumably their lifelong, at least since they'd had kids. And he gets this offer and he wants to take it in New York. And Lydia applied in New York to school in New York. But Anna and Tom, their older two, live in Boston. And they're about to have, Anna's about to have babies, grandbabies. So there's a lot of fighting back and forth. Not with Alice. Alice makes herself very clear while she still can. She doesn't want to go to New York. She wants to be where they're at, her home in Boston, Harvard. John says, no, I should take it. And so the kids and him go round and round and round.
And this is moving now into January of 2005. She is now sleeping a lot. She'll sleep for like 18 hours a day. I mean, really kind of scaring her and the kids. But during moments of lucency, she is able to talk with John about this and makes her wishes very clear. And again, poignantly done and really well written, because one of the things that Alice is giving up or that she believes John is making her give up is that sabbatical year. She's been trying to get through one more year and then she can have the sabbatical year with John. Well, John's not going to take a sabbatical year. And so, remember, that was one of the things Alice wanted when she was eating the ice cream and listing through the things she wanted. She wanted that year with her husband. And now it's gone. It's going away because John wants to take this new job and she doesn't want to go.
Yeah, this paragraph wrecks me. It says, John, had always loved her, but she'd made it easy for him. She'd been looking at their time left together as precious time. She didn't know how much longer she could hang on to herself, but she'd convinced herself that she could make it through their sabbatical year, one last sabbatical year together. She wouldn't trade that in for anything. And it wraps up with, one of them was going to have to sacrifice everything. And she feels like it's her.
Yeah.
And here, 8 a.m. on the BlackBerry, the questions pop up. I think this is the first instance she gets one flat out wrong. Number 4, when is Anna's birthday? It's always been September. And as you said, the answers had changed. They got much shorter, much terser, a lot less specificity. But here, 1, I think, is absolutely wrong. This is where I first noticed. Nope. She doesn't notice. I did.
Yeah. Remember, January 19th is never good. They go back to the cemetery, but she doesn't want to be there this time, so they don't stay very long. One more thing happens here that's really, really important. She can't find her BlackBerry. They're looking for it everywhere, and they can't find it. They eventually find it in the freezer. This thing she has relied on, that is her list keeper, is gone. Is dead. She doesn't have it anymore. Her brain is failing her, and now her secondary brain is no longer functional. Now, part of me was very excited about this because this meant she no longer has access to the suicide quiz. But still, that's another thing she has lost, a tool she has used, and now it doesn't work.
Yeah, John finds it, and he says, I think it's dead. But I have to read this part. This is one of her lucid moments where she wakes up after this long sleep, and she really scared them, especially Lydia, and her daughter's lying there next to her. And Alice tells her, you're so beautiful. I don't know if I can do it. I'm so afraid of looking at you and not knowing who you are. And Lydia, oh my gosh, I love this girl. She says, I think that even if you don't know who I am someday, you'll still know that I love you. And Alice asks, what if I see you and I don't know that you're my daughter and I don't know that you love me? Lydia says, then I'll tell you that I do, and you'll believe me. There's more, but I love that.
It's beautiful.
Oh, so good.
We've watched the disease getting worse and worse. In February of 2005, she has another appointment with Dr. Davis. All the same questions, but her answers are getting just worse and worse as she goes through. John is getting frustrated. It's really, really challenging.
Yeah, it says Alice's own answers now were like soap bubbles, the kind children blew out of those little plastic wands on a windy day. They drifted away from her quickly and in dizzying directions, requiring enormous strain and concentration to track. This is getting beyond her. She's absolutely declining.
But Dr. Davis thanks her for what she identified with the support group and how important that was and what an oversight it was that they didn't have that. And he also says, speaking of the Alzheimer's Association, Alice, I just received their program for the annual Dementia Care Conference, and I see you're giving the opening plenary presentation. That is amazing. Yes, said Alice. I meant to ask, will you be there? I will. I'll be sure to be in the front row. You know, they've never asked me to give a plenary presentation, said Dr. Davis. You're a brave and remarkable woman, Alice. I love that.
Yeah.
His compliment, genuine and not patronizing, was just the boost her ego needed after having been so ruthlessly pummeled by so many tests today. John spun his ring. He looked at her with tears in his eyes and a clenched smile that confused her.
Next up, she's at a podium. This woman who has good days and bad days, and seemingly more bad days than good at this point. But she's still Alice. And it says like 700 people in this audience. Her family's down in front. I think they made T-shirts.
Well, John is wearing his lucky gray T-shirt.
Oh, that was it. Yes.
He's in a T-shirt, but it's his lucky T-shirt. It says he usually reserved it for only his most critical lab result days. She smiled at his superstitious gesture.
She says this might not be her biggest or most prestigious audience, but of all the talks she'd given in her life, she hoped this one would have the most powerful impact. So to be clear, she's speaking to an audience about Alzheimer's disease. It's called DASNY, Dementia Care Conference. This is a compliment to be asked. Like the doctor said, they didn't ask him, they asked her, partly based on who she was, and I think in large part because of her actions at making a support group for these people who are alone, and that she's brave enough to get up there and do this at this point in her life. So admirable and wonderful. And she wears her butterfly necklace. Her mother's there with her too. How much of it do you want to read?
There are several pages of this, and it's all wonderful. Really, really well written. I don't think we can do all of it. Are there any particular things you want to pull out of it?
I'll just read the ones I marked, where she acknowledges that she has Alzheimer's disease. So she's not an expert treating it, but she's an expert at having it. And she says, we in the early stages of Alzheimer's are not yet utterly incompetent. We are not without language or opinions that matter, or extended periods of lucidity. Yet we are not competent enough to be trusted with many of the demands and responsibilities of our former lives. We feel like we are neither here nor there, like some crazy Dr. Seuss character in a bizarre land. It's a very lonely and frustrating place to be. And she talks about how she's been losing her yesterdays. If you ask me what I did yesterday, what happened, what I saw, felt, heard, I'd be hard-pressed to give you details. I might guess a few things correctly. I'm an excellent guesser. But I don't really know. I don't remember yesterday or the yesterday before that. And she talks about how she'd willingly trade like the U.S. presidents for the names of her children.
Yeah.
But she doesn't get to choose. She doesn't get to choose what she loses or keeps. She calls out the hard parts, some of the really hardest parts of this disease. And she acknowledges that there's a lot of fear with it. She often fears tomorrow. What if I wake up and don't know who my husband is? It's really good.
It's really good. My yesterdays are disappearing and my tomorrows are uncertain.
So what do I live for? I live for each day. I live in the moment. Some tomorrow soon I'll forget that I stood before you and gave this speech. But just because I'll forget it some tomorrow doesn't mean that I didn't live every second of it today. I will forget today, but that doesn't mean that today didn't matter. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, this is a hard book to read. It's a hard topic. It's a hard disease, but this is beautiful and really shines some wonderful light. And this speech is just an incredible success for her. And everyone's proud of her. So Kathy and Dan are there cheering from her group and her husband. John stood tall and unabashed in his lucky gray t-shirt with an unmistakable love in his eye and joy in his smile as he applauded her.
So we're in April now. And it went so well. She did so well. And she read it all together because she was so afraid she'd lose it in the middle, forget to read in the middle. And it didn't. It went so well. But it says it took a toll. The energy and there's a cost to having put forth so much of herself at this point. It says the high wasn't sustainable and the memory faded. She lost a little of her confidence and status when she brushed her teeth with moisturizer. She lost a bit more when she tried all morning to call John with a television remote control. She lost the last of it when her own unpleasant body odor informed her that she hadn't bathed in days, but she couldn't muster up the courage or knowledge she needed to step into the tub. So before, she was Alice Howland, and I have Alzheimer's disease. She was the hero of this conference, and here she is Alice Howland, Alzheimer's victim. She's both.
Yeah. It's not too long after this that John basically bundles her into a car, and they're going to go to the hospital. She's reading the sign, and she sees neurology on the sign, so that's where she assumes she's going. But that's not the only thing on the sign. It also says radiology, surgery, and obstetrics. And so she doesn't know what's happening, but she gets to meet her grandbabies, and she gets to hold them.
So this comes at a low time for her, where it says she has no reserve to draw, no energy left. But here, this young man, she doesn't recognize him as her son-in-law, but he rolls a cart carrying 2 clear plastic rectangular tubs. Each tub contained a tiny baby, their bodies entirely swaddled in white blankets and the tops of their heads covered in white hats, so that only their faces showed. She loves these babies. She is wonderful with these babies. It is a joy and a delight to even just read about this woman with these babies.
Yeah. And Lydia's got good news. She's gotten into 2 universities, New York and Brandeis. Is that how it's said?
I think it's Brandeis.
Brandeis.
I don't know.
Well, as I understand, is closer to Harvard, right? Is closer to where they live. Whereas New York would be closer to where Mom would be if John took the new job. And so Lydia goes through this soul-searching moment and this agony of which do I go to? Because where will I be closer to Mom? And this is another example where Alice gives her great advice. Alice doesn't recognize her, doesn't know she's giving advice to her daughter. She thinks she's giving advice to this lovely young woman and basically says, do what's right for you, and helps her make the choice. And it's another example of how these 2 who couldn't talk before this disease, now they can in surprising ways.
Yeah, her daughter says, we've come a long way, Mom. Alice didn't understand what she meant, but she says, you remind me of my students. I used to be a student advisor. I was pretty good at it. And her daughter says, yes, you were. You still are.
There's a lot of argument back and forth between the kids and John about the new job and what Mom wants to do and what she doesn't want to do, and a lot of back and forth on that. And then we come to a really important chapter of May 2005.
John and Alice go out for ice cream. And this is spring again. The weather's coming back. They can walk around. And she says, I'll have whatever you're having. And he says, I'm getting vanilla. She says, that's fine. But he's tense, and she doesn't really understand why. He says, you want something with chocolate. Okay, then I'll have something chocolate. There's just no guile in her now. There's no pushback. She's living in the moment. That's by definition, I feel she's kind of defined to the moment. She's just happy to get ice cream. But they get ice cream together and they eat it along the river. And it's this beautiful day. It's described how the pink and white blossoms from the crabapple tree next to them are scattered across the ground like party confetti. It's spring. And she's eating ice cream and it drips down her hand. Interesting. Remember earlier where she was thinking about that automatic ability to lick an ice cream cone and keep it neat and tidy. That's gone now, but she is delighting in this ice cream cone. But John starts asking her some questions.
And this really well written, because the questions that he's walking her through are the suicide questionnaire questions. Now, he doesn't know that. He's asking just normal questions like, do you remember your office? Where's it at? Do you know when Anna's birthday is? And so it's this really subtle way, and it comes up organically in this conversation. But as readers, what we see now is that she can't answer any of them. That suicide questionnaire, that thing that she decided at this point, I want to die, she now gets every one of those questions wrong while she is enjoying her ice cream and living in the moment.
I think you're wrong. He found her BlackBerry in the freezer. And he says, yeah, I think it's dead. And there's no more mention of it. But at one of those fights with the kids about where he should go, where he's saying, I'm taking that job in New York, he tells them, you don't know everything. The questions are exactly the same, 1 through 5. Her responses are all different. And he does it kind of like the neurologist where she doesn't know. Do you know when Anna's birthday is? Is it in May? And like, do you think it's in the spring or the fall? I mean, he leads her to see if she can cue it up, but he asks her all 5. I think you're wrong. I think he read the note and he read the butterfly file on her computer.
Blowing my mind a little here, Jody, and I think you're right.
Yeah.
In my defense, this was my first read, and I had to read 2 chapters multiple times.
Well, and it's crushing, and it's not like he does anything, but he read her wishes.
No, because this makes so much more sense when you put it like that.
Yeah.
Because that was the question at the end, the final questions he asked. Alice, do you still want to be here?
Mm-hmm. And he's
now,
very serious.
As I read this, I thought this was the job, the Sloan Kettering job. Do you want to move to New York or do you want to stay here? But the more I think about it, and with your guidance, I think you are totally right. What he's asking there is, do you want to die? Because that's what was in the but. Wow. I had no idea. I totally missed that. So thank you for pointing that out.
He found that BlackBerry and he read it for sure. That is absolutely how I read it. And this question, do you still want to be here? Alice in her mind says, this question was important to him. She smiled, pleased with herself for finally having a confident answer for him. Yes, I like sitting here with you, and I'm not done yet. She held up her something chocolate ice cream to show him. It had started to melt and drip down the sides of the cone onto her hand. Why, do we need to leave now, she asked. And he says, no, take your time.
That makes so much more sense. Because honestly, I thought the next chapter was kind of an anticlimax. But with that, it makes so much more sense. So the next chapter, this is June 2005, she can't do emails anymore. And her group is worried about her because they keep sending her emails, but she's not responding. One of them calls her and she downplays it, but she can't handle the computer. It doesn't make sense. But this has reminded her that she has a computer and she has an email. And so she opens up her computer and starts looking at the files. And she sees one marked butterfly. And she almost randomly clicks on it and she reads it.
She likes butterflies.
Up to this point, we've known the quiz, but we've never known what's in the butterfly file. This is where we learn it.
She writes to herself, Dear Alice, you wrote this letter to yourself when you were of sound mind. If you are reading this and you are unable to answer one or more of the following questions, then you are no longer of sound mind. What month is it? Where do you live? Where is your office? When is Anna's birthday? How many children do you have? And she explains to herself that you have Alzheimer's. You have lost too much of yourself, too much of what you love, and you are not living the life you want to live. There is no good outcome to this disease, but you have chosen an outcome that is the most dignified, fair, and respectful to you and your family. You can no longer trust your own judgment, but you can trust mine, your former self. You before Alzheimer's took too much of you away. You lived an extraordinary and worthwhile life. You and your husband, John, have 3 healthy and amazing children who are all loved and doing well in the world. And you had a remarkable career at Harvard, filled with challenge, creativity, passion, and accomplishment. That is how she saw her life. She lived a remarkable life, and that is true.
This last part of your life, the part with Alzheimer's, and this end that you've carefully chosen is tragic. But you did not live a tragic life. I love you, and I'm proud of you, of how you've lived and all that you've done while you could. Now, go to your bedroom. Go to the black table next to the bed, the one with the blue lamp on it. Open the drawer to that table. In the back of the drawer is a bottle of pills. The bottle has a white label on it that says, "For Alice," in black letters. There are a lot of pills in that bottle. Swallow all of them with a big glass of water. Make sure you swallow all of them. Then get in the bed and go to sleep. Go now before you forget, and do not tell anyone what you're doing. Please trust me. Love, Alice Howland.
It says she reads it again, and she doesn't remember writing any of it, and she actually enjoys parts of it. It says she wants to print it out, but former her should have told later her how to print things because she can't remember. But she wished her former self, she before Alzheimer's took too much of her away, had known to include instructions for printing it out.
The instructions, though, are clear for what she is supposed to do, and so she goes upstairs. She walks up. She looks in that drawer. She opens it, and she pulls everything out of the drawer. Tissues, pen, sticky paper, coins, candy, floss, lotion, all sorts of stuff, but no pill bottle. And then she hears a voice. Alice? What? She spun around. John stood in the doorway. What are you doing up here? He asked. She looked at the items on the bed, looking for something. I have to run back to the office to pick up a paper I forgot. I'm going to drive, so I'll be gone for a few minutes. Okay. Here, it's time. Take these before I forget. He handed her a glass of water and a handful of pills. She swallowed each one. Thank you, she said. You're welcome. I'll be right back. He took the empty glass from her and left the room. She lay down on the bed next to the former contents of the drawer and closed her eyes, feeling sad and proud, powerful and relieved as she waited. Those weren't the death pills. Those were just her normal pills. John had found and removed that pill bottle. And man, now I'm thinking about that last chapter. Thank you for pointing out to me, because that makes this even more poignant. I mean, my assumption was just he had found the pills at some time and got rid of them. But he's doing what she wants right now, because he had asked her, do you want to be here? And she said yes. And so he's honoring her wishes.
Yeah, it's good.
That's good.
Next up, they go to commencement together at Harvard because her student, Dan, the graduate student, he's graduating. And their staff. And it's funny, she doesn't like the clothes. She calls them like baby gowns or something. But then everybody's wearing them, so it's okay. And John stays with her, holding her arm, takes care of her as they walk around. And she has questions. She doesn't really know what's happening, but she listens to the commencement speech. And they use big words, and she has to ask what they are. And they talk about a picaresque. And she asks, what is that? It's a long adventure that teaches the hero lessons. And it's funny, she calls him an actor, like she's watching a play again, but it's the person giving the commencement speech. He gives them 5, like lessons he learned along the way. Be creative, be useful, be practical, be generous, and finish big. And she thinks, I've been all those things, I think, except I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished big. But she tells John, that's good advice.
I love the part here, though, where she gets to meet up with Dan. She doesn't recognize Dan. This is her graduate student, and this is her graduation. This is where he gets his PhD. But he's very, very sweet here because he gives her a thank you letter. He tells her to her face what she means to him and how grateful he is. But then he says, here's a letter. I wrote that so you can reread it at any time. And I think that's very, very sweet.
Mm-hmm. But these shining moments are always offset with something really hard now. She's less and less aware of her surroundings. She lets go of John for a second. I think he goes to shake someone's hand, and she walks into the street.
He grabs her by the hood
She's
she's
pulled
wearing
away.
and pulls her away. So she almost gets hit, but John saves her.
That car almost hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the driver is so concerned that she almost hit this woman. It's interesting though. Alice notices the driver, the woman in the car. She sees her eyes. That sticks out to her. The car, not at all. Oblivious to the car. But the woman's eyes in the car she notices. And I think that's interesting.
But then what she doesn't notice is interesting because John takes her and takes her away. And the last line here is he put his arm around Alice's waist and his hand under her elbow, and she walked home with the kind stranger who had saved her life. This is the first time that she doesn't recognize John, which segues into the summer of 2005. They're back in their home in Chatham.
Their vacation home.
Their vacation home.
On the Cape.
And again, she's really only in the moment here. She's talking about the guy sitting in another chair drinking a brown liquid with ice. She is describing everything she sees around her, but she's not a part of it anymore until she pulls up a textbook.
It has big words in it. And she says, I think I've read this book before. And this is where the man stops. And he says, you've done more than that. You wrote it. You and I wrote that book together. And this is one of those instances where it snaps into place. And she said so few of those here towards the end of this book. But here she remembers, I wrote this book with you. I remember you. I remember I used to be very smart.
She wanted to tell him everything she remembered and thought. But she couldn't send all those memories and thoughts, composed of so many words, phrases, and sentences, past the choking weeds and sludge into audible sound. She boiled it down and put all her effort into what was most essential. The rest would have to remain in the pristine place, hanging on. I miss myself. I miss you too, Allie. So much. I never planned to get like this. I know.
The next chapter is very short. It's John drinking coffee and weeping because he's reading the paper. The trial drug that Alice had been on was called Amylyx in this story, and the heading on the newspaper is Amylyx Fails Trial.
And that's the end of the book proper. There is an epilogue, though, which is short and kind of sweet. At this point, Alice doesn't really recognize anyone around her, but she's still experiencing what's going on. She has a caregiver now, Carol. It's not clear, and I can't tell whether John is still living with her or whether he took the job, whether her daughters are taking care of her, but clearly there's some situation that's being worked out, and she is being looked after. Lydia still is reading to Alice, and she's reading some of the stuff that she's writing for college, and she tells her, I don't want you to focus on the words. You don't have to remember all this. I want to know what this makes you feel. And it's wonderful because Alice's response at the end is simple. Love.
The actress squealed, rushed over to Alice, kissed her on the cheek, and smiled, every crease of her face delighted. And Alice asked, did I get it right? You did, Mom. You got it exactly right. Oh my goodness, this book.
So here we are both crying. Because how can you not? Because this book is wonderful and such an important topic. And yeah, I'm so grateful this was written.
So I feel like you just missed some things with John. He definitely moved to New York because the girls, the actress and the mother, because the babies are here too. And it describes Alice, pretending to eat the baby's hands. Like her with these grandbabies is just delightful.
I think I got that he moved to New York. That one I think I figured out.
Because they said, is Dad coming this weekend? No, he can't. He said next week. But the girls help over the weekend. She definitely is a caregiver now. And I love it. Alice says she feels lucky because she gets to sit there in the park and watch this young, lovely girl sing a song. They're at the park listening to music. And there are these wonderful moments where she is not who she was, not what she was, but she is still Alice. I loved this the first time I read it, and since then, that something so hard and so painful can still have such wonderful moments of joy and delight. And we did The Giver a little bit ago, which had so much about how we are made up of our memories. And yet, here's another instance where she is still herself even without them. They mattered when they happened, but here she's in the moment and she's still herself because she loves and people love her.
Well, with that, let's turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.